We resume in the plasma cottage, with Colress unveiling the modifications he has made to Baneri's foot. He explains how he replaced the fiberglass coating with a metal coat that allows it to be sturdy while remaining lightweight. He also proudly shows off the many minor tweaks he made to the joints, allowing for greater freedom of motion. However, A is most interested in the largest change to the foot, the fact that it now has a large rectangular slot where its ankle used to be. This causes Colress to chuckle and smugly adjust his glasses, saying he's glad A noticed, and that it is the crowning achievement of the modification, and the key to his victory over Bryson. A's eyes light up, but Anthea tells Colress to stop monologuing and show the others what they made. Colress grumbles but acquiesces, pulling a thick red rectangular object from his pocket and slotting it into the hole. At once, small red dots begin to glow on the base of the foot, much to A and Concordia's excitement. Colress goes on to tell them that the rectangle he just inserted is called a microdrive, and that it can change the typing of a certain attack, depending on which microdrive is installed. A eagerly wants to try this out, so Colress helps Baneri refit the foot, and is pleased to see that it is appreciative of his handiwork. He then leans over and whispers some instructions in Baneri's ear. It listens intently, and gives a determined nod of understanding. Colress tells the others that he just taught Baneri how to perform the move Techno Kick, which, thanks to the burn drive, will now become a fire-type move. Baneri demonstrates, swinging its leg in a wide arc, as the glowing dots spew a torrent of flame that encase the foot, turning it into a fireball. The others applaud, and A eagerly asks if there are more drives like this. Colress says that this microdrive is based on a larger one he built during a previous project, and that it should be possible to recreate the others, but it will take some time, since he will be working from memory and modifying the drives to work with the foot. He also explains that he was able to whip this one up so quickly because its effects are similar to an existing move, Blaze Kick, and that the others won't be so simple, as his closest reference will be the elemental punches, and he will need to do a lot of extrapolation and adaptation. A thanks him for his efforts, and runs outside with Baneri before any of the others can tell him to stop. From their window, Anthea, Concordia and Colress watch as a distant orange glow appears and disappears in quick succession to indicate the progress of A and Baneri's training. Colress even comments favourably that Baneri has adapted to both its prosthesis and to the new move with surprising speed, and admits that perhaps he judged it too quickly when they first met. Concordia teases that she's not sure if Colress is really talking about Baneri or A, which Colress rebuts, calling the king excitable and well-meaning, but still a hard-headed fool and a brat to boot. Anthea chuckles and reasserts her point from their earlier discussion, that it's okay to like things and people without getting defensive and snide. Colress responds by getting defensive and snide, much to the sisters' amusement. They allow A and Baneri to practice for another hour before bringing them back inside for dinner. As the king and his partner return to the cottage, Anthea comments that it seems Baneri is able to walk without A holding it anymore. A agrees, telling them that before the battle with Nat, they had been working on balance exercises. The sisters praise Baneri for how quickly it bounced back, but Colress is more critical, telling them all that it is slower than it ought to be, and that Baneri and A will now need to work on improving Baneri's speed if they are able to put Techno Kick and the improved prosthesis to good use. A promises they will make that a priority before wolfing down his meal. Baneri gives a similar thumbs up before mimicking its trainer's hearty eating style. Concordia chuckles and says these two are made for each other, and even Colress is inclined to agree, though he can't resist making an allusion to them both being hard-headed. The rest of the evening is spent chatting, and before long it is time for bed. With exceedingly poor grace, Colress offers A the master bedroom, but the young king decides to camp out under the stars. He and Baneri sleep peacefully, looking up at the night sky, and are the first to rise in the morning. Eager to get to training as soon as they can, but not wanting to wake the others, A and Baneri decide to head into the mountains to train. Heading north, the pair find a mountainous area that seems pretty deserted, and so decide to test out Techno Kick here, where they won't disturb any Pokemon habitats. Climbing up a hiker's path, A and Baneri quickly learn how treacherous mountains can be in the pre-dawn gloom. Thankfully, Baneri is able to use Techno Kick repeatedly to act as a light source, and Baneri are quite pleased with how proficient it is with this move, right up until they use it for the 6th time in close succession. Instead of blazing brightly, the foot just emits steam, and the microdrive ejects itself, flying over the edge and tumbling into the darkness. A admits that maybe they overdid it, but Baneri has already leapt over the edge and begun sliding down the slope in search of the drive. A follows closely behind, though in the pitch black, he struggles to find Baneri, let alone the tiny microdrive. As they continue their descent, obstacles like jagged rocks and holes loom out of the darkness. A is able to avoid them, but worries for his friend and so pushes himself to go faster, even if it reduces his ability to avoid danger to himself. When he catches up, Baniri gives A a determined look and pushes forward to show that it is fine and able to keep going. When they come to a halt at the bottom of the slope, A spots the microdrive and bends over to pick it up, saying how glad he is that he doesn't have to tell Chorus that he lost it. But just as he says this, something small and feathery shoots out of the darkness like a cannonball. The small feathery thing snatches the microdrive right out of A's hand, then begins flying away. Baniri leaps at it, landing on the thing and slowing it down enough for A to recognize it as a Rufflet. But Baniri is unsuccessful in getting the microdrive back from Rufflet, as it is thrown off, just as the small flying type does a wide arc and escapes back the way it came. A dives to catch his friend, and the pair tumble to the ground as Rufflet continues to fly away with their microdrive. The duo give chase, and when they get close, Baniri tries to jump off A's shoulder and catch Rufflet once more, but it still hasn't gotten enough of a handle on its new foot to propel itself upwards while moving, and so misses the mark entirely. A catches it once more, and tells his partner to stay put until they find where Rufflet is going. The pair continue to pursue Rufflet, until the mountainous plains give way to a forested area. It soon becomes apparent that Rufflet is heading to the tallest tree in the forest, and when it gets there, A and Baniri are forced to watch helplessly as Rufflet flies to the highest branch, where a large nest is perched. Not one to give up easily, A begins to climb the tree, with Baniri on his back. They make good time, and soon find themselves able to partially see what is going on with the Rufflet. It seems the small flying type is presenting the microdrive to a trio of large flying types, who A recognizes as Braviary. When he takes a closer look and sees a smattering of shiny objects littering through the nest, he surmises that Rufflet stole the drive as a gift. Rufflet hopefully pushes the microdrive towards the trio of large birds and makes a pleading chirp. The larger flying types converse briefly, then the largest one kicks the drive off the edge of the nest. A catches it deftly, but decides to stay and see what happens next, having a very bad feeling about this situation. A's intuition proves correct, as having deemed Rufflet's gift insufficient, the other two Braviary begin to peck at Rufflet. It tries in vain to shield its head, but a steel wing slap from the largest one sends it toppling off the edge as well. Rufflet is too wounded to fly, and so when it falls past him, A leaps off the branch to grab onto Rufflet and break its fall. This angers the other flying types who descend on A, Baniri and Rufflet, pecking and scratching at them all. A tells the Braviary to stop it, and that violence isn't the answer to their problems, but this earns A an air slash to the stomach for his troubles. Baniri tries to defend its trainer, clipping the burn drive into place, and managing to actually get some height with its jump, before launching a techno kick. This hits one of the Braviary in the face, but only seems to anger it more, as all three birds begin launching air slashes. A scoops up his partner, holding it in one arm and Rufflet in the other, before turning his back to take the brunt of the compressed air attacks, in place of the two Pokemon. Rufflet sees this and tweets in a concerned tone, but A tells it that he's fine, so long as it and Baniri are safe. However, how long he will remain fine is up in the air, as the trio of angry birds show no sign of halting their onslaught. Seeing no other choice, A flees back the way he came, clutching the two Pokemon tight to his chest. Just as he pursued Rufflet, now the aggressive Braviary pursue A, firing air slashes that the young king has to jump and dodge in order to narrowly avoid. As pain from the multiple attacks he's taken start to wear A down, he knows he needs to find a new strategy. Seeing nowhere to hide, he takes drastic action and veers towards a stream he can now see in the distance. Amid the stark white of the floating ice, the water looks black as iron, and A forces himself not to think how cold it will be as he charges towards it. Baniri spots the stream too, and knows what A is about to do. A tells it not to worry, and that he'll hold it and Rufflet over his head to keep them out of the icy water. But this is not what concerns Baniri, and it desperately cries to convince A not to do this to himself. A just shakes his head and leaps into the stream. The cold burns like fire, and makes A involuntarily gasp, filling his lungs with water. He tries to kick up, but the force of the current and the weight of the two Pokemon he's holding above the surface keep him down. He knows that he has to at least get his head above water or he'll drown, and so keeps trying with all his might, but the damage he took from those Braviary and the fatigue from the sprinting seem to have sapped all his strength. A looks skywards, and through the warping of the water sees Baniri and Rufflet safe and dry, while the Braviary are nowhere to be seen. He did it. He protected his friends. He is happy as the darkness swallows him. A awakens to the feeling of pressure on his chest, then immediately vomits up water. Coughing and spluttering, the young king's sight begins to return, and he sees that he is lying on a riverbank, with 2 Pokemon and a person watching over him. The Pokemon are easy to recognize: Rufflet, who coos its concern for A, and Baneri, who upon seeing that he is awake rushes over to hug him. A returns the hug and tries to focus his vision on the person. It's a man, and for a moment A believes that it's his father come to save him, but when he comes into focus, A finds that his savior is none other than Nat. Seeing that A is awake, Nat drops a hot thermos onto A's chest, causing him to gasp and cough up more water. He then tells A that what he did was foolish, and he could very easily have died, but even as he says this, it is delivered as a fact, without any emotion or concern in his tone. A says he knows, but explains that he had to jump in the river to protect Baneri and Rufflet from some braviary. Nat bluntly tells A that he should not have endangered himself for them, and that there are many Baneri and Rufflet, but he is unique. A says that his Pokemon friends are unique too, and that if Nat doesn't understand that, he shouldn't even be a member of Team Plasma. This causes something to stir very briefly in Nat's eyes, but they quickly return to their usual dead look, and he chooses to ignore this comment, instead saying the thermos contains tea, and that A should drink it all now if he wants to avoid getting pneumonia or hypothermia. He then vanishes without any sort of farewell. When Nat is gone, A divides the tea 3 ways, and offers it to his Pokemon friends first, saying they must be cold too, but Baneri and Rufflet refuse, insisting that A have it all. With a smile, A gives the Pokemon his sincerest thanks, then pulls them both into a hug. When the tea is finished, A limps his way back to the cottage, feeling cold and thoroughly exhausted. And when he arrives, Anthea and Concordia throw themselves onto the young man, hugging him tightly and alternating between exclaiming how glad they are that he's back and chastising him for scaring them. A is confused, saying he's only been gone a few hours, but his sisters tell him that's not what's important. They explain that their father once told them how Team Plasma has many enemies who would do anything to protect the status quo, and that these evil people would likely think hurting or holding hostage the king of Team Plasma would be a good way to force the team to give up on their mission. So for his own sake, they tell A that he can't go running off on his own without telling them where he's going. A protests that he's a king, not a child, until Colrus smirks and says that he's actually both, and to listen to his sisters, since they have his best interest at heart. All 3 of Ghetsis' children are stunned by this seemingly kind and concerned declaration from Colrus, and Anthea asks if he really just showed support for them. Colrus scoffs that he's done nothing but support them, and they just can't recognize what good help looks like. Anthea retorts that she can stop worrying now, since if Colrus is being a smug jerk, then everything must be back to normal. Concordia interjects, not quite everything, then points to A's jacket, which appears to be wiggling. The others look at it, and Rufflet pops its head out to see everyone. A explains what happened with Rufflet, the braviary and the stream, before culminating the story with his encounter with Nat. Concordia expresses her gratitude for Nat, saying it was kind of him to pull A out of the water and probably save his life, while Anthea is less optimistic, asking why he was there in the first place. She looks to Colrus like he might know the answer, but the scientist is at his bench, inspecting Baneri's foot for water damage and cursing A for being careless. Eventually the topic turns back to Rufflet, with Anthea saying that it seems like it won't be welcome in its own territory anymore. A agrees, saying that now even wild Pokemon have begun fighting and hurting each other. Concordia places the blame for this on humanity, saying that Pokemon must have learned about battling from them, and if Pokemon had never been corrupted by human influence, they would be able to live in peace and harmony, like they do in A's castle. A just nods. He then asks Rufflet if it would like to help him bring peace to the world. It chirps its agreement, and he borrows a Pokeball from a grunt to capture it. Even though it is only midday, Concordia tells A that he should get some rest after what a morning he's had. But the young king disagrees, saying they still need to train if he's going to defeat Bryson and take the first step towards their dream. Concordia shakes her head, but for once, Colrus comes to A's defense. He admits that though A is a pain in the neck and a menace to technology, there is something interesting about the young man's convictions that he wants to study. He therefore suggests they have a battle. A agrees, but says he only wants to use Baneri, since Rufflet took a few hits earlier. Colrus accepts this, and says it will give him a chance to examine how their little adventure improved A and Baneri's grasp on Techno Kick. After refitting Baneri with its foot, the pair head outside, with Baneri entering the ring for A, while Colrus brings out a Magneton. A immediately calls for a techno kick, and Baneri ignites its foot, while Chorus just watches and waits. When Baneri leaps up and swings at Magneton, Chorus tells his Pokemon to use Thunder Wave now that Baneri's committed to the strike. Magneton obeys, and though A tells his partner to dodge, it is too late, and Baneri is hit by an electric current that causes it to fall to the ground and spasm. A runs in to check on Baneri, but Chorus snaps at him to stop, saying that if A really wants to help Baneri, he has to help it build the resilience to stand back up after it gets knocked down, rather than running in and calling the fight off at the first hurdle. A looks concerned, but Baneri skitters something that sounds like an agreement with Chorus, before pushing itself up into a kneeling position. A says that if it's sure, he'll support it all the way, then calls for another techno kick. Baneri rises unsteadily, with spasms and stiffness induced by paralysis making it harder to stand, but nonetheless, it does get to its feet, and even manages to lunge at Magneton. Chorus says to use Thundershock, but A tells Baneri to knock it back with Techno Kick. Baneri swings its foot, but instead of igniting with flame, the prosthesis sparks with electricity. The now electrified kick comes down on Magneton, seeming to absorb the Thundershock and increase its power when it hits. It actually does a degree of damage to a Pokemon which would normally resist electric moves, and Chorus finds it fascinating, asking A to do that again so he can test a hypothesis about a way to improve the foot further. A says he doesn't know, since that attack seemed to really hurt Magneton, but Chorus promises it will be fine, and even Magneton warbles something to that effect. A reluctantly agrees, calling Magneton a loyal friend for helping, and then has Baneri use Techno Kick again. Once more it sparks and flashes rather than burning, and Chorus doesn't even tell his Pokemon to resist, allowing it to take the hit and fall unconscious. Chorus then recalls Magneton, and tells A that together they've made quite a discovery, since now they know that the prosthesis is vulnerable to electricity, and has the potential to overload. But through this, they have also learned that it is capable of an electrical output. Chorus says he will use this data to patch this design flaw, and maybe even see if he can create an electric-type microdrive based on what he just witnessed. A thanks him for his efforts, but says not to forget Magneton in all this. Chorus doesn't take too kindly to being talked down to by a child, but admits that Magneton was instrumental in this discovery, and promises to take it to the Pokemon Center before doing anything else. He offers to take Rufflet too, so that it can join in on their training. A takes him up on this offer, and hands Chorus its ball with his thanks. He and Baneri then decide to keep up their solo balance training, as well as Chorus's suggested speed training from last night. They ultimately choose to do this by having an egg and spoon race, and run off to see if there are any eggs and spoons in the Plasma Cottage. When Chorus is alone in the yard, he hears a set of light footfalls behind him, and doesn't even bother to look back. Instead, he bows his head to make his lips harder to read in case of onlookers, and begins speaking in a voice, barely above a whisper. He tells the unseen figure that he will take over the boys' training from here, and to inform Lord Ghetsis that everything is progressing right on schedule. The figure then passes into Chorus's peripheral vision, giving him the sight of wild green hair. Without a word, he nods, and then is gone.